So here we have the second review, which is on solving equations or inequalities. So again, focusing on our main steps, always check distributive property first, then combining like terms. Just like with an expression, we do the same thing with an equation or an inequality. So we always start with a distributive property or combining like terms. So let's go ahead and start with the first one. First one does not have anything to distribute. So again, there will be no distributive property. I'll write it here on the side. Second step would be combine like terms. There is nothing to combine here, so we would move on to step number 3, which is move things from the left to the right. So this is when we add or subtract x's. So this is where we move the x term or the variable term. So again, if I look here, I have an x on the left side and on the right side of the inequality, so I'm going to group them by subtracting one over or adding one over from one side to the next. Generally, we move the x from the left side to the right side. So I'm going to go ahead and subtract 3x. Subtract 3x on both sides. That eliminates them on the left side. We have 12 combined like terms. Bring down our inequality and the 30. So that's the first step. Always move variable to the left when there's no distributive property or combined like terms. Then we're going to group the numbers, which is the 12 and the 30, or our integers. So we're going to move the 12 to the right. So I always do the opposite of what I did with the x term or the variable term. So letters to the left, numbers to the right. You can do it backwards if you prefer. So we have negative 8x. Inequality does not change, 18. And then the last step is to divide. So we're going to divide both sides by the number next to the variable. Always divide by the number next to the variable. So x. Now the question is, does my inequality change? And the answer here is yes. So again, when does the inequality change? It's when you divide by a negative. So this is going to change because I divided by a negative. So this fraction, I end up with a fraction because 18 and 8 don't divide nicely, but they do reduce. So I'm going to go ahead and reduce them, divide them by 2. So I'm going to get 9 over 4, and it's all negative. All right, let's go ahead and move on to the next one. But again, actually, before we move on to the next one, sometimes they'll actually want you to write this as a mixed number. So I'm just going to go ahead and quickly write this as a mixed number. So it's going to be x less than negative. 4 goes into 9 2 times. And the remainder is 1 out of denominator stays the same of 4. All right, let's go ahead and move on to the next one now. All right, so let's go ahead and see what we got. We do have distributive property here, so we're going to start off with that. Always start off with distribution. So in this case, we're going to multiply by 4. Everything else is going to be left alone for now as we do this. All right, 4 times 1 is 4, 4 times n is 4, and a number next to a letter when we multiply them. All right, so we have this. Now we're going to do combine like terms. Left side, we can combine the 4n and the 12. One has a letter, one doesn't. Right side, we can combine the 3 with the 4 because they're regular integers. They can be added or subtracted. In this case, added. And drop the 4n. Now we're going to move x's from one side to the left, from left to right or right to left, but in this case are n's, so I'm going to move my variables to the same side. So I'll be subtracting the variable on the right side and moving it over to the left side. Make sure you line them up. And nicely, these 4n's cancel actually on both sides, so we're just left with 12 less than or equal to 7. So is 12 less than or equal to 7 true or false? This is 12 less than 7. This is going to be a false statement. Therefore, do we have no solutions or all real numbers or infinite solutions? And since it's a false statement, we have no solution. And we are done with this one. All right, let's move on to the next one. Here we have an equation with 2 fractions. So when we have 2 fractions and an equal sign in between, again, there must be an equals in between. We go ahead and cross multiply. So we're going to multiply the 2 and the 6 and the 5 with this binomial. Again, when I cross multiply, you do not write a fraction. That's the whole point of cross multiplying. We just write it as an equation. So one of the multiplications goes on the left of the equals, the other one goes on the right. So we usually put the variable one on the left. So the 5 multiplies the binomial 2x plus 4. I'm sorry, minus 4. It's preferable that you spend the time and write it down because I usually see mistakes happening in this piece. 6 times 2 is 12. Do the distributive property when there's parentheses. So we're going to get 10x from 2 times x and minus 20 from 5 times 4. That equals to 12. And then just go ahead and solve. So we're going to move all the x's to the left, but there's only one x. It's already on the left, so we're going to just move the numbers to the right now. Opposite of 20 is adding 20. And we just finish it off. 10x equals 32. Divide both sides by 10. They cancel, so I'm going to be left with x equals. So again, this does not divide nicely, so we're just going to reduce it. I can divide these by 2, so I'm going to get 16 divided by 5. And just to take it a step further, let's just change it to a mixed number just in case you see this on the interim. 5 goes into 16 2 times. 5 times 2 is 10, which leaves me a remainder of 6. That goes at the top. And my denominator is 5. Actually, I made a mistake. 5 goes into 16 3 times. 5 times 3 is 15, which means a remainder of 1. And my denominator stays the same. So you may see either one of these two answers on the interim, so just kind of be prepared for that. Let's move on to that last one. We're going to solve for u. So we're going to get the u by itself. So just seeing our equation, we see the u on the right side, so we need to move everything away from the u to the left side. So I'm going to start off by moving the 12 over. And these cancel. 6v and negative 12 do not combine because one has a letter, one has a number. So we have to write both of them side by side. So 6v first, minus 12 second. Now we can drop our equals and our 3u. So again, u is not by itself just yet, so now I need to get rid of that 3. So when we want to get rid of a number next to letter, we just divide. So divide both sides by 3. It's a giant division by 3. Or you can do individual divisions by 3. Whichever makes more sense to you, you can write down. And u equals 3 into 6 is 2 times. We have the v. 3 into 12 is 4. And we have our final answer. You want to spend the extra time just to rewrite it backwards and get your final answer. All right, that's the end of the second video, so go ahead and do your practice and then come back for the third video.